On this edition of Early Look, I'm going to be previewing the main event headlining UFC Vegas 118, I think it is, April 25th. Aljamain Sterling, Youssef Zalal. My name is James Lynch. If you've never watched the show before, I'm going to go through a bunch of different stats, a bunch of different intangibles. Then I'm going to give you my prediction for this fight at the end. Some of this stuff may have relevance to you, it may not. Doesn't really matter. Just let me know in the comments after you're done watching this video what your prediction is for this fight. Going to be a great one here. Big fight in the featherweight division as both look to get closer to a title shot. It's unfortunate this one's taking place at the Apex because this really should be in front of a big crowd, but I digress. Let's talk a little bit about a tale of the tape between these two, like we always do to start the show. Aljamain Sterling, 25-5. Youssef Zalal, 18-5-1. Aljamain Sterling is 36 years old. Youssef Zalal is 29 years old. 5'7" to 5'10", 71 to 72. So Zalal going to be younger, also going to be a little bit bigger in this spot as Youssef Zalal gets the first main event of his career. And again, this will be 5 rounds, so a lot of implications for the featherweight division. Let's start first with the Funkmaster, the former bantamweight champion, Aljamain Sterling, as we dig a little bit deeper here. So you can see there, 25-5 record. He's got 3 knockouts, 8 submissions, and 13 decisions. He's 36 years old, 5'7" with a 71-inch reach, trains at a Syndicate MMA in Vegas, also used to train with Longo MMA over there as well. I think maybe he goes back a little bit, but not entirely sure. I mentioned it there, former bantamweight champion, had 2 successful title defenses, 3 successful title defenses, sorry. He's got performance of the night 1 time against Corey Sandhagen, a fight where he's still one of the few guys to finish Corey Sandhagen, so that's kind of interesting. Aljamain Sterling made his amateur debut, check this out, way back in May of 2009. Made his pro debut in April of 2011, and then made his UFC debut at UFC 170 back in February of 2014. So he's been in the UFC for over a decade, more than a decade, I should say. Sterling is 17-5 in the UFC. He's got 7 stoppage victories. Some notable wins for Sterling. There's a bunch because he's been in the UFC for a while. Renan Barão, former bantamweight champion. Brett Johns was undefeated at the time. Not Miles. Miles and Brett don't look anything alike. They're not related. But yeah, he defeated Brett Johns at the time. He was 15-0. I'll count that as a notable win. Beat Cody Stamann at the time. He was 17-1. That was a pretty good win there. Jimmy Rivera was ranked at a certain point. So was Pedro Munoz. He's the only guy in the UFC to finish Corey Sandhagen. Very impressive there, getting the first round finish there. That was 6 years ago, but still something to point out. He's got 2 wins over Petr Yan. I don't want to get into the whole semantics of, the illegal knee. I think that should have been a no contest personally, but what are you going to do? But yes, he beat Yan in the rematch, and we can talk about how close that fight was the second time around. Beat TJ Dillashaw. Got to put a little asterisk on that one too, not on Sterling's end, but Dillashaw was injured going into the fight, and that was evident. The bell rang, so I don't know how much you could put some stock into that, but it still counts as a win. Henry Cejudo's a good win. And then since moving up, beat Calvin Kattar, beat Brian Ortega. So yeah, he's got some notable wins. Some of them, like I said, a little bit weird. And then he's got some notable losses as well. People forget earlier in his career, lost to Brian Caraway in a split decision. Sunsao got knocked out by Marlon Moraes. And that's still the only second stoppage loss he's had. And then the only other stoppage loss he had was Sean O'Malley getting finished in the second round in that fight. Also lost to Movsar Evloev as well back in December of 2024. Sterling's had a bunch of layoffs. We'll go through some of them. Actually, yeah, we won't go through all of them, but I'll go through some of the more notable ones. Going from Yan to Yan, there was a 399-day layoff. Going from Evloev to Ortega, there was a 260-day layoff. And then going into this fight, there'll be a 246-day layoff. So not too long for O'Malley. For Sterling, sorry. And then if you remember, he had a very short layoff in between Cejudo and O'Malley, just 105 days. So yeah, and there was all that conspiracy theory about, the UFC kind of forced him to come back early, so he'd have to cut more weight, and he was more susceptible to the knockout, and sure enough, he gets knocked out by O'Malley. So yeah, we know sort of the history there with Sterling. Okay, let's go back to some of those decisions that he's had. I think those are worth noting just quickly. I'm not going to go through them entirely. The Brian Caraway fight, for example, people did feel like Caraway won. 11 media members scored the fight for Caraway. 13 scored it a draw, and 1 scored it for Sterling. Actually, most felt it should have been a draw if you go look on MMA decisions. Rafael Sunsao, you look at that fight back in January 2017. 14 media members scored the fight for Sunsao, 3 scored it for Sterling, so that should have gone to Sunsao's way. We have the Henry Cejudo fight, which people felt was close. If you go look at that one, that was at UFC 288 back in May of 2023. 21 media members scored the fight for Sterling, 2 scored it for Cejudo. So again, that was the right call. And then the Evloev fight, I hear people talk about that being a robbery or something. I don't think so. And MMA decisions back this up too. 11 media members scored the fight for Evloev in this fight. Only 5 scored it for Sterling. So the majority did feel like Evloev did win that fight. So that's kind of interesting. So if you put it that way, Sterling is at featherweight, he is 3-1 or 2-1, I should say. Yeah, because he's Kattar and Ortega, and then the loss to Evloev as well. So just wanted to mention that. Let's look at his stats. Sterling stats are 4.45 significant strikes landed per minute. Striking accuracy is at 52%. Striking defense is at 59%. Doesn't get hit that much. Takedown average 2.45. That's fairly high. His takedown accuracy is only at 30%. And his takedown defense is at 44%. That'll be interesting. We'll see if Zalal can work that ground game in this one. The sub average is 0.6. So that's everything you need to know about the former bantamweight champion Aljamain Sterling. Let's have a closer look at his opponent, Youssef Zalal, the Moroccan Devil. Like I mentioned there, first main event for him. 18-5 record. He's got 4 knockouts, 10 submissions, and 4 decisions. Currently ranked number 7 in the featherweight division. I forgot he was ranked that low. He's 29 years old, 5'10" with the 72-inch reach. He'll be 7 years younger and have a 1-inch height and 1-inch reach advantage. He trains at a Factory X. He's got performance of the night 2 times against Yarno Urans and Jack Shore. He's tied with Daniel Pineda, Chaz Skelly, Makwan Amirkhani, and Brian Ortega for the second most submissions in UFC featherweight division history at 4. So pretty good record there. Zalal did not have had an amateur debut way back in August of 2015. Sterling was already in the UFC at that point. I'm pretty sure Sterling's UFC debut was February of 2014. So Youssef Zalal made his amateur debut a year after Aljamain Sterling was in the UFC. So that's something to keep in mind. Made his pro debut in August of 2017 and then made his UFC debut back in February of 2020. And remember, this is his second stint in the UFC, Zalal. So Zalal is 8-3 in the UFC with 1 no contest. He's got 4 stoppage victories. Some notable wins include Calvin Kattar and Josh Emmett. And his notable losses include Sean Woodson and Ilia Topuria, although kind of a badge of honor here for Zalal. Went the distance with Topuria. We've seen how often Topuria finishes his opponents. The fact that it went to the judges' scorecard is probably a bit of a badge of honor. But yeah, I mentioned it there. After that, he got released after the Blackshear draw and then picked up a couple wins on the regional scene, a couple fights, a kickboxing and a boxing fight as well, and then came back to the UFC in 2024. Zalal's never been in any close fights. He's never had any major layoffs or any major injuries for the most part. He's been fairly active since, think about it, since coming back to the UFC in 2024, he has fought 5 times. That's pretty active over the last 2 years. Let's look at his stats. Let's have a closer look. Zalal's stats. 3.03 significant strikes landed per minute, so that's lower than Sterling. His striking accuracy is at 50%. His striking defense is at 66%. We'll see if the fight does end up staying on the feet for a bit, but we'll have to see. His takedown average is 2.17. His takedown accuracy is at 31%. Takedown defense is 59%. That'll be interesting to see if Sterling's able to get a couple takedowns there. And his sub average is 0.1 or 1.4. Now, at the time I'm recording this, we don't have odds. This fight was kind of just announced about a week ago, but I also wanted to get this out earlier. If I had to guess, I'm guessing Aljamain Sterling's going to be the favorite in this fight just because of the fact that, again, he's tough to finish and he's a former champion, and this is a big step up for Zalal in this fight. Tapology, fan voting, though, they have Sterling as well. So they have him at about 61%, 94% picking him by decision, 39% for Zalal, 80% taking him by decision. So which way am I going to go? And and we don't have any AI odds yet either because we're waiting for that as well. All right, which way am I going in this fight? This is a tough one. I will just first say that I am pretty sure this fight's going the distance. This is one of those ones where I think 2 really durable guys, tough to finish, tough to take out. I think the play here is the fight goes the distance. However, I got to make a pick. My pick's going to be Youssef Zalal in this fight, and I think he takes the decision here. Now, a couple reasons to like him. First and foremost, he's way younger than Aljamain Sterling, and I don't think we've even seen the best version of Youssef Zalal yet. He's 29. He's coming right into the prime of his career. We just saw him in the fight previously take out Josh Emmett in the first round. We're seeing an evolution here. Obviously, when he's able to go out there and implement the ground game, it does not go well for his opponents. Now, obviously, he's fighting a guy in Sterling who's very tough to submit and take out and also has a very good ground game there. So that's not going to be an easy task. I did interview Zalal ahead of this fight. He plans to be the first guy to submit Aljamain Sterling, but I don't know. That's easier said than done. You do look, though, at Sterling's takedown defense. That is something to kind of keep in mind. 44% takedown defense. Is he good enough of a wrestler to get those takedowns? That's going to be the big question in this fight. But so, yeah, like I mentioned there, Sterling never been submitted. Zalal has, and again, Zalal has won decisions before. He has 4 decision wins. He couldn't finish Calvin Kattar, went the distance. So that's kind of why I'm leaning Zalal decision as opposed to getting him by submission or by stoppage. Like I mentioned there, I do like the fact that he's so much younger, that he's in the prime of his career. Are we seeing a decline in Aljamain Sterling? I think he's still competing at a high level, but I also don't see him like wowing us, maybe like he used to a little bit, right? And again, Sterling's had such a weird career. Like, I'm not even sure like how good he really is. It's kind of tough to say that for a guy that's been in the UFC so long, but like, Brian Ortega, right? Like, we saw Ortega at the weigh-ins in that fight. He was depleted. He was not winning that fight. So like, how good of a win is that? It's tough to say, right? Let me even see if I can find the Brian Ortega, Aljamain Sterling face-off. Do you remember this where like it looked like Ortega was on death's door? Look at this. Sorry, it's a little blurry there, but yeah, it did not look very healthy in that regard, right? Look at that. That's it's my face when I got to go see my in-laws. It's not too good. That's a bad joke. Anyways, or here's a better video of it too. You can see here, just completely depleted. I bring this up because it's like, I don't know. Let's go. Look at Ortega. He's barely walking. So I bring this up, and it's not to fault Sterling. Like, you fight the opposition you're given, but like, I just don't know how good of a win that was when we've seen Ortega clearly depleted, and that's why now he's going to 55. So there's that side of it. Evoyev, one of the best in the division. That fight was close. I'll give him that. And Evoyev is kind of like a phenom there. He had a close fight there. So I think that fight showed really more than anything that he is kind of near the top here. But again, Calvin Kattar, yeah, he beat him, but so did Zalal. But I think Zalal did it a little bit better, if we're being honest. Granted, he fought him after. Yeah, it's just tough to say because Sterling's best wins are at 135. And he hasn't really had that like big one at 145. So that's why, like, I guess what I'm trying to say here is like, yes, overall Sterling has fought better opposition, but not at 45. I think they're about the same. Like, I would almost put the Josh Emmett win for Zalal as being a little bit better than him beating Ortega. I think, even though Emmett just lost a few weeks ago, but, and let's be honest, the pick here too with Zalal is betting on potential. And I do this every now and then, but I've been a believer in Zalal since he's come back. I think he's going to be a contender in this weight class. I think he's a force to be reckoned with. And I think he can hang anywhere this fight goes. I think he can hang on the ground with the ground game. I think his wrestling's good. I think his striking's good. Like, I just think at 36, like, that's like, if Sterling's a little bit younger, if he's maybe like early 30s and he's fighting Youssef Zalal, then I might change my mind here. But I just think that we're getting an older Sterling, a Sterling that, has not been super active over the last little bit either. He fought Ortega in August. Then you got to go back to April. And then before that, it was the O'Malley fight the year before. Like, he's had these gaps. We know he's had these issues with the UFC as well. It's in the apex. I think that does favor Zalal, who's going to be a little bit quicker. Yeah, so my long-winded answer here is I just think the potential of Zalal is enough for me to pick him here, especially if you're getting him at plus money. So again, my pick here is going to be Youssef Zalal. Would it shock me if Sterling won this? No, because again, this might be too much of a step up for Zalal, but I think he's ready for it. I think he's fought sort of the lower level guys. Now he's ready to take on that test. So Youssef Zalal by decision is going to be the pick. So let me know what your prediction is for this fight in the comments. Would love to hear from you. Really appreciate you tuning in. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. My name is James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.